Welcome, Chosen Girls, to our Chosen podcast. I'm so glad that you're able to join us today, and I'm so excited to have Jirzia Blackman here today. Actually, she is the owner of Rhapsody Counseling and Wellness Center. She is a licensed clinical social worker. I know her very well because she's been in the church for a number of years, and actually, I've even been with her when we've talked to some people and prayed with some girls before and seen her in action and know how amazing she is. And how much help she gives to women. Well, it was you and I talking to a woman, but not just to women, but also to guys. And I'm just very excited about this subject too, because I know it's a subject that especially that we are seeing a lot of in our younger kids. Yes. And I think the whole mental health and this whole topic became huge during COVID.
Yes.
That's when it really came to the light, even though anxiety had been something that can plague many, women, children, men, women, all of them, and all ages. I think that really during COVID and after COVID, it was really brought to the forefront, and people really started thinking more about mental wellness and being well and healthy, right?
I would have to agree with that. I was actually thinking today about that. I think the fact that introverts felt at home during COVID, but extroverts had a really difficult time adapting to having to isolate or being alone or not being able to see family and friends. And I feel like that really heightened the anxiety that we saw amongst a lot of people. Not only anxiety, but I think mental health generally. Depression became really into the forefront as well because people are now home and unable to contact other people and talk to people. I feel like that really exacerbated a lot of mental health issues or brought it to the forefront.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm sure that you saw that in what you do. Just probably an overwhelming flood of all of it coming from, because really, you didn't hear about it or talk about it.
Right.
You didn't, even though it was out there, you didn't talk about a lot about depression or anxiety until all that happened. And then all of a sudden, it's not like, oh, it just happened. It's been there all along, but it increased greatly, exponentially. And then you started hearing more and more about it, about the effects of anxiety. So anxiety, or even though today we're going to talk a lot about just a specific age group, which is generation, what we call Z, and that's 13 through 25, anxiety looks the same, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Anxiety looks the same whether, you have a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, or a 99-year-old adult. Even our animals can experience anxiety.
So true. I have a dog that experiences anxiety. I wonder what to do to help my dog. I know. Rick found these little things because my dog gets anxiety when we go to the vet. Okay, right? Yes. And so, and I always pray over her and everything else, but I was getting her some dog food and I saw these little thing that said calming thing, and Rick, he picked it up and he goes, "What is this? Is this?" And I said, it's not a treat. It's something I'm going to try the next time we go to the vet. But you're right. Even animals can have anxiety.
Separation anxiety. Yes.
Yes, I pray over her.
Separation anxiety, or just going to the vet, they can smell, they can sense, or even if you're leaving, if you're packing, they can sense if something's happening. If there's an argument happening, they can sense that there's something off. And even that's why we have pets at Rhapsody. We also have pets. Yeah, because they can pick up on your emotions.
You do?
Yeah, we do.
Interesting. Okay, girls, you heard it here first. You can have your pets at Rhapsody.
Yes.
I didn't know that. And I mean, pets are like people's children now, right? They definitely are. So interesting. Well, I definitely have seen that with my dog, and I'm sure some of you that are watching or listening to this have seen that too. Okay, well, let's just talk about some things about anxiety. There's four components of anxiety. So let's talk about that a little bit. The first one that you mentioned to me was biological. So you want to elaborate and tell us, what does that mean?
So I love to educate my clients about these four components because I think it takes away the stigma and it takes away the feeling of what's wrong with me, right?
So good.
So there's a biological predisposition. And what that means is that if mom had anxiety, right, there's a genetic connection. There's a genetic there's a gene that if mom had anxiety or dad had anxiety, so there's a biological predisposition to anxiety. And so science shows that sometimes it's just in your genetics. It's just in your genetic makeup.
Interesting.
And so we can blame our parents.
It's like you want somebody to blame your parents.
Blame your parents.
But then you can, but then, hey, once you do recognize it, you get help.
Exactly.
And somebody like with Jirzia or at Rhapsody, and you pray, and you can break that generational curse, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the first step is becoming aware of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think in some generations, it's silence, right? It's not talked about. You just knew that mom would freak out about things, right? Or mom would get really nervous, right? But there wasn't a name or a label to it. And I think now that we talk about it, like you said, it's good we become aware of what's happening. And then we now know that we can break those generational curses of anxiety. And we don't have to, if our parents experience it, doesn't mean that we will experience it as well.
And I love that you said, we put a name to it. And that is so important too, that like you said, this stuff, like you said, oh, I could have seen that my mom or had an aunt or a grandmother, and they were like, I don't understand that behavior or what's going on. But putting a name to it is so important, because that's just identifying it. Then you know how to address it, both in counseling and getting help, but also spiritually in addressing it and praying over it and speaking directly to it.
That's right.
Where before you're like, okay, you're fighting like you're boxing, but you're just boxing in the air and you're not hitting the target. You're like, wait a minute. That's what it is.
And we're going to name it, and we're going to speak against it or pray against it.
And that's so good. I love that. Okay, and what about psychological?
So psychological is basically your personality type.
Okay.
Right? So it could be that you are more of an A-type personality. So it's like you have things must go a certain way for you, or me, right? Or you need things to look a certain way, or maybe you are the oldest child or the middle child or the youngest child, right? And so that's also a psychological component, right? How were you raised? Was there a lot of pressure in your household, right? Because let's say you were the oldest child and mom said that you were in charge of all the children.
You had all these expectations.
Correct,
okay.
Right? And so psychologically, you became feeling like you are responsible, right? You have to take care of your younger children, your younger siblings, right? And so you took that onus on. And so that's your personality, that can affect your personality type. And so that'll make you more anxious, right? Because I'm responsible for my younger siblings, right? I have to make sure they're okay. I have to make sure that they eat or they do what they're supposed to do, right? We see it also with middle children, right? It's like not feeling I'm not the oldest, but I'm not the youngest, right? And so I'm here stuck in between, right? And so we see a lot of some anxiety with the middle children as well. The younger children, not so much. They have other issues. But you see
it more with middle and older.
Those components. Because it's your psychological makeup.
Okay.
And the next component, your social environment, affects your psychological makeup, which is what we're kind of talking about as well.
Right. I was thinking about somebody who have these expectations of like how they did in school.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to make certain grades, you have to achieve in school, you have to be, and I personally know somebody that's like that I had to measure up, I had to make certain grades, and I had an older brother, and they were really smart, and then I was getting compared to them, and I had to measure up, and just this anxiety about, I've got to prove that I am worth something. I got to prove that I'm worthy. That's where they get their validation is from their grades and what they do, and it put this whole pressure, like you said, anxiety on them. So, boy, I like the example used about the siblings, because I've seen that, and then I've seen it too in school about, you have to do this, or I've seen this too, that some people, that I've talked to with their kids, kids will just shut down.
Yes.
Right? They'll just shut down because they're like, well, I couldn't measure up to that. Even though they're really smart and they know, the parents know their potential and what they can do, but they shut down because they're like, well, because I'm not going to be perfect or measure up. And I definitely have seen that more with firstborns and middle children for sure. But that's so interesting, right?
Yes.
So when you're saying psychological, I can definitely see that.
Yes, it's like a performance anxiety.
Which then puts you into the social, because if they shut down,
yes,
they shut down everything.
the environment.
The environment, the whole thing. And so I can see how psychological and social can go together.
Connect. Yes.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Anything else about social?
Oh, well, social, yeah. So the environment that you were raised, right? Were you upper class, middle class, lower class, right? Was there a lot of violence in your home? So we've seen a lot of individuals who maybe had domestic violence or just in their surrounding or even in utero.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
it didn't have to happen while they were born. It could just be in utero,
Right.
where
So
mom is
good.
releasing this cortisone in her belly, in her body, as she's carrying this baby.
Yeah.
And then the baby has anxiety when they're born. So even in utero, they're affected. There's actually a study, and I love to share, there's a study with children that were in utero during 9/11.
Oh, my goodness.
And how that generation has struggled with anxiety.
Interesting.
Because the moms who were carrying them released that cortisone, which is one of those genes that, the hormones that release anxiety in our bodies.
Wow, that's so powerful. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but I've thought about it like when we've prayed for like babies or even younger children in prayer, because we've been in ministry, 38, 40 years, whatever it is, a long time, no longer, 38 years here, but before we moved here, we've been in ministry probably 48 years. But anyway, that, prayed through children before or gone through ministry with them, in which in a way, they're going through ministry when they come to Rhapsody Counseling and Wellness Center, that you're getting to some roots and you find out some things that were going on in the mom's life or in the father, what was going on in the home. And you're like, oh, wow, then you know how to minister to them. And then us as ministers know how to pray for them. And to pray and break some of those things off and bring healing into their little spirit. Like you said, that they were babies in utero do pick up things. So it's so powerful.
Our environment really plays a factor in anxiety in our bodies.
Sure does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even if you were, raised maybe in a neighborhood. I like to tell the story, like I'm from New York. And so, we either had to run home or pick a gang. It's like you were either blood, Crip, or, or a part of a gang, or you had to make sure you get your tail home really quick. And so that can create anxiety, right? It's an environment of is something going to happen? Like you couldn't play outside certain times because you're afraid that something's going to happen, right? And so that's an anxiety producing environment, right? And
it could carry on.
Exactly.
Yeah, for a long time. And then spiritual is the last component.
Yes. So spiritually, I like to use Proverbs. I believe it's Proverbs 4. Yes. Okay. Proverbs 4, 23 and 27, where it teaches us to guard our gates, right?
Yes.
And so our eye gates, right? Our ear gates, right? What we hear, what we see, what we do, where we go, where we walk, right? It's important to guard those gates. Why? Because it affects our heart.
Yeah, that's an entrance to come into your life. Yeah.
Exactly. And so sometimes we're watching certain things that we shouldn't be watching, or we're listening to people speaking negativity or speaking down to us, right? And that affects our heart. It affects where do we carry anxiety? You feel the palpitations in your chest. You feel it in your heart, right?
Yeah.
So it's important for us to be aware of what we're listening, especially that generation, right? 13 to 25,
for
right?
Sure.
It's like,
There's
what
so
are you
much
listening
out
to?
there.
Yeah. Where are you going? What environment are you in, right? Where are you walking into? What parties are you walking into? Who are show me a company and tell you who you are, right? Like, who are the people around you? What are they speaking into your life? What are the, podcast that you're listening to? What's the music that you're listening to that you're feeding into your spirit, man, spiritually?
Right.
How is that edifying you, right? Is it causing us anxiety to increase in your life, or even depression to increase in your life? So just being mindful of those spiritual gates that we're not allowing things in.
Yeah, and that is so important spiritually, to guard your heart. That's what the Bible talks about.
Yes.
The Bible tells us to guard our heart, And so we want to, that's something you endeavor to do, and it's like to be careful. And when, Generation Z and that, they're not thinking, they're like, oh, this is just fun. It's like, no, it's not. No. You don't understand the position you're putting yourself in. I remember even when our girls were teenagers and they would say, well, I'm going to do this or go here. And I'm like, no, you don't. I don't want you to do that because you don't understand that what you're putting your spirit, opening your spirit up to. And you want to be careful with that. You want to be very careful with that. So I'm so glad that you brought that out. Yes. What you hear, what you listen to, what you're watching.
Where you're walking.
Where you're walking, so important. Thank you for bringing that out. So, okay, let's try to guard that, people, right?
Yes.
And help our kids and that younger generation, because it is a lot of, hey, renewing your mind and saying, no, this is not, and, guard, no, that's, and listening to positive things, because they certainly at this generation do not need to be hearing anything more negative, because it's just negative out there anyway. Yes. And I think there's such an identity crisis with that generation, because they don't know who they are, because they're looking all around trying to figure it out, instead of, it's like, I had a mom talking to me and they were talking about something that their child was doing. And so, well, you love your child unconditionally. I said, but the way, because they were like, how do I pray for them? I said, you need to pray they find their identity in Christ. Because if they don't, that's where they've got to get their identity. They're just looking at this, like you said, what they see, what they've watched, what they're hearing. And they're like, okay, this. And it's like, no.
Yes.
You need to get your identity. Let me tell you who God says you are and what his word says you are and how he made you.
Yes. And speak life into them.
Speak life.
Yeah,
Speak life.
Because of some things that we've seen, I think we've become desensitized.
Absolutely.
To certain things. And that's what this generation is being exposed to all the time. Constantly.
Yeah, you're right. They have been desensitized. So, yes. Speak life. Speak life. That's clear scripture. And we get to choose life or death, blessing or cursing. So let's choose and speak life. Let's choose life. Okay, let's talk about some types of anxiety.
Yes. So there's a generalized anxiety, which is basically just a fear or anxiousness or increased emotional what would I say? Just increased emotional uncomfortability with a little bit of everything, right? So it's not specific to anything, but your anxiety is just general. So it could be in school, it could be at work, church, just doing events, speaking in public, doing a podcast. You just feel anxious about a lot of things. And so that's what we call generalized anxiety.
Okay.
And then we have more social anxiety. And so that's where some social events are really difficult for you. So it's hard for you maybe to go to school, right? Because you have to interact with kids or peers or teachers, right? So you may never want to talk to a teacher, right? You may never want to tell the teacher that you're struggling in the classroom. It's hard for you to order, right? So you pull up at a fast food restaurant, or you're in a restaurant with your family and you want your mom to order for you, right? You don't want to actually speak to someone or place your order. You feel silly. You feel like they're thinking, like you're messing up or you're not ordering the right thing or whatever, because our feelings, they're not facts, right? Yeah. But they're our feelings and they're valid.
And they're valid, to us or them at the time, yes.
Yeah, so there's that social anxiety. There's separation anxiety, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. Yes. So we see it even in little babies. We see separation anxiety where mommy leaves and it's like their world falls apart. It's really difficult for them. They think that something really bad is going to happen to their parent parent or their caregiver when they're not in their presence. We see it in pets, right? We could see it in partners, right? It's really hard for you to not have this person with you. You feel like something really horrible is going to happen to them where they're not there. And then we have phobias.
Oh, yes.
So, we all know the phobias, right? Afraid of heights, spiders,
or snakes. Now, look, not that I'm afraid. Okay, I've killed a snake before, a couple of them, but I don't want them around. Okay.
Me either.
But that's definitely a phobia, right? I do know some people have those too. So some phobias.
Yes, I had a snake in my garden, and I didn't go out there for a few days.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And she has a beautiful garden, by the way. I did see pictures. I was very jealous. Nothing like fresh vegetables.
Oh,
okay.
yes. And so we talked about those, and then substance-induced or medication-induced anxiety.
Oh, okay.
And substance-induced, we see that a lot in older children, and maybe like 21-year-olds, 20, 22, when they begin experimenting with various substances, be it marijuana, K2, we could go on and name all of them, but when they begin to experiment with certain things, especially if there's a biological predisposition and they use certain substances, we see that it exacerbates whatever was underlying.
Interesting.
And normally you have your first, we call it psychotic break, or first, hospitalization, or something to that effect at about that age.
Interesting.
Because they begin to experiment with different substances. And then we have medication-induced. So sometimes some side effects of the medications that we're taking can cause anxiety to increase in our bodies.
Wow, interesting. Gosh, when you were saying that, it made me think of somebody else again that I had prayed for before that for them it was alcohol, and they had a problem, but it was kind of like, okay, you're one of those people that cannot take a drink, okay, not one, because they couldn't stop, you know, and then they would kind of go off the rails and have all this anxiety, you know. So, gosh, but when you're saying that, I was like, wow, I've seen that. But I didn't, it's kind of, I'm sitting here as you're talking about and saying things, I'm like, oh, wow, that's what that was, you know what I mean? So that's really interesting. Definitely that can happen. Well, we said anybody can be affected by anxiety.
Yes.
Everybody has, it can. And not everybody, but it can, right? It can be affected, it can affect anybody. And how does it affect us? How does, like physically, what would it do?
Yeah, so sometimes a lot of my clients, they come in because they went to the emergency room first, right? They were feeling like they were having a heart attack.
Oh, okay.
Right? Yeah. And they went to the emergency room and they did a whole workup, MRI, and they had everything checked. The doctor is like, there's nothing wrong with your heart. You have anxiety. And it's like a shock. Right? They have no idea. But it can feel physically like you're having a heart attack.
That's true. When you're, and I've had many people say that, I've heard that, had people in the church that when we went to the hospital, thought I was having a heart attack, and they said it was an anxiety attack. So, yes. That's pretty, that's heavy duty, right?
Yeah, because the cortisol, the hormone that's released, and I love when we talk about the science part of it.
So go ahead and talk about that. That's really interesting. I love this. I'm learning some good stuff.
But the hormone that's released, it affects us physically, right? It can affect your health, right? Stress is number one for how it affects your health, right? So if you have excessive amount of stress in your life, right? If you're going through either financial stress, emotional stress, or whatever that is, it can affect you physically, right? So you have hypertension, right? There's even cancers because we're just so worried and anxious for everything, right? That it affects us physically.
It's opening the door for the diseases and things to come into your life.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So we want to close the door to
close
anxiety.
Those doors. Yes.
Close the door to anxiety. Wow, that's so... Yeah, I didn't even think about that part of it, about how, so, you have this inside, and then how you respond to it, it releases this hormone and the cortisol that comes in, and then it causes all this stuff to go on in your body.
And havoc in your body.
In your body. God made our bodies to operate and function in the perfection of which He created them to function, and all together running like a machine.
Yes.
And then you did something that's like you put something in the in the machine machine and stopped it, right?
Yes.
And then it causes disarray to happen in your body. So you want to bring your body back into alignment and into peace, right?
Yes.
What about emotionally? So that would be your behavior, how you would respond. It would affect your emotion. If it does affect, it can affect your health, like we just talked about, but also your emotions and your behavior.
So emotionally, it's you're avoiding certain places, right? Avoiding certain things. You're easily irritated, which is, especially for that age group, that's how anxiety kind of presents mostly, where it's this agitation, this irritability, just, not wanting to do anything or go anywhere, just wanting to be in their room, not wanting people around them. That's, that emotional, that's how it affects them emotionally, right? It's this easily irritated, just frustrated, avoiding people, places, and things. That's what we normally see.
So between this age group that we're talking about, Generation Z, that's normally your first clue?
Yes.
Is that they kind of go in their room, they stay in their room, or they sleep, they don't want to get up. I don't know, we know teenagers like to sleep.
Besides the normal teenagers.
Sorry, the normal teenagers that like to sleep.
I think that's the best sleep I ever had in my life.
Right? I know, it's like telling my granddaughter, you better do it now.
Right, because enjoy it now.
Enjoy it now. I know. Oh, it's just, what time did you get up? Oh, 12 noon.
1.
Oh, great. How nice is that?
Right.
It's definitely, when you get to adulting, that's not going to happen.
Right. But we're talking about not that normal developmental.
Right.
But more excessive, right? You just say their name and they're like, what? Right? It's this excessive irritability or excessive refusing to go places or do things. Or even maybe they played a sport before and then they no longer want to do it. Or they were involved in maybe something at school, maybe drama, or or they were working a certain job and things were fine, and then they no longer want to go, or no longer want to show up. Something shift and it's excessive, right? It's not reflective of the actual issue. So let's say something happened at work and you're like, well, just go back to work, right? Like it's the response is excessive to what actually happened.
Okay.
Yes.
Like an over response, like,
Correct.
Wow, that was just really like overreacting to that tiny little thing.
Yes. And then you're seeing that pattern or behavior for at least 6 weeks.
Okay, at least 6 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's good to hear too, to know that if, as a parent, what to watch for.
Yes.
To see that. That's so interesting. I mean, this, I'm learning so much, so this is really great. And I know it's going to help our ladies too with their kids. So thank you so much for sharing. So we're going to take a break for just a minute, and we're going to come back next podcast. Okay, we are going to have Jirzia go through some techniques. Okay, and the science behind those techniques to help you with your children. If you're seeing if your children, or if this isn't just for your children, but we're talking about adults and young adults and all adults. These are things that can help you, that you can use to help other people, whether it be your kids or your friends or nieces and nephews or whatever, or for yourself or for your spouse or your friends. And so she's going to help us do that. So I'm looking forward to hearing about that and talking about those techniques. So we'll see you in just a little bit, and next month, actually. Okay, thanks.